Hi everyone, I'm Rusty Dog and welcome to Flight Simulator. Okay, you see me in the Boeing 777-300ER and we are at JFK International Airport in the on the outskirts of New York, is it? I think, something like that. Anyway, JFK, we're here and I am planning a trip across the Atlantic. Now, the two airports involved in that trip are JFK and London Heathrow. And I've been wanting to do a transatlantic flight for a while, and this is the first plane I've really been in study level like this that is capable of easily making that flight. And so this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So I'm just going to today preview the details of this flight, and I'm going to take you through my thought process because it's changed a little in that I thought it would be cool to do this flight from A to B, okay, and you know, I was deciding whether to use accelerated time or do it in real time. Now, I think accelerated time would be the way to go, certainly if I'm going to be doing it on stream or something like that. Now, the only downside of doing it on a stream, of course, is the flight would take the same time as it would to go from Heathrow to Barcelona, probably, without accelerated time, you know. But I don't want to get this messed up at the end. I don't want the descent to go wrong. I don't want anything to go wrong. So it's, if I do it live, it's going to be a bit of a gamble as to how it goes. Whereas if I do it on video and then upload it later, I can just upload the good flight. But, you know, I do things live a lot. I live with the mistakes and whatnot. So there was that decision to make. And then the other decision that there was to make was, which way are we going to go? Are we going from New York to London, or are we going to go from London to New York? So I got to thinking about this, and it all came down to time zones. Now, if we take a look at actual flights in real actual ones, let me just see if I can bring this a little bit bigger for you guys. Alright, so these are actual flights happening right now. Now, in the main, at least from what I saw... Oh, actually, this is not showing the right list. Okay, so these are all the planes, JFK to Heathrow. But I'm only interested in Boeing 777s. There we go. Okay, so now, as you can see, this is the plane we would be flying. The Boeing 777-300. And as you can see, it's British Airways and American Airlines making those flights to and fro. That's it. Now, this is going from New York to London Heathrow. Okay. So, you will notice a pattern here on the departure and arrival times, in that they are kind of 12 hours apart. Okay? So give or take a few minutes, right? Let's call it a few minutes if you look at something like this. Give or take a few minutes here and there, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, doesn't really matter. But you will see that if you take off at... Actually, this is probably not a great example, but let's say if you take off at 10 p.m, you'll arrive at 10 a.m. Now, that doesn't mean that the flight's taking 12 hours, because it isn't. It's just that the flight is 7 hours, and there is a 5-hour difference in the time zones. So, if you add that together, you get the 12 hours which you're seeing here. So that means that if we took off in JFK at 8 a.m. New York time, that we would land in Heathrow at 8 p.m. UK time. Now, that would be a good time to land, because it would be towards the end of the day, the sun would be setting. It wouldn't be, I don't think, particularly pitch black at night time, but it would certainly be getting to that level. I think that would be a really nice time to land. So taking off from New York at 8 a.m. would mean that the flight, we'd have to start prepping around 7 a.m. To give ourselves at least an hour to get everything programmed into the plane and prepped and ready to go. Now, using time acceleration or time compression, depending on how you want to look at it, really makes no difference to the times we're going to be taking off and landing. So here you'll see it's absolutely dead on. They're taking off at 6:30 in the afternoon, so 6 p.m. and landing at 6 a.m. Again, there's a 5-hour difference currently between the UK and New York, and it's a 7-hour flight. So again, adding the two together, you get 12 hours, and this is why you have this. So if we can find one, is there any that's setting off in the morning? No, they're kind of early evening, aren't they? And then you get some that are taking off at 11 p.m. here and landing. This one's making up 10 minutes somehow on this flight. But yeah, that's the estimated arrival time. But for the sake of 10 minutes, we can say 12 hours. This is 12 hours. All right, so there's that. However, if we switch it around the other way, so now we've got Heathrow to JFK, and we do another search, and then of course we filter just for the Boeing 777. Again, it's British Airways and American Airlines only. It's been delayed while it's on the way. It stopped in the sky. Now here it's a little bit different, because essentially you're adding a couple of hours on, because there is a 5-hour time zone difference, but it's a 7-hour flight. So whatever time you're taking off from, let's say here, we're going to be adding, it seems that we're adding 3 hours on. It's actually two and a bit. So yeah, it looks like whatever time you take off from, you can add almost 3 hours, and that'll be your landing time. I'm not quite sure why it's 3 hours and not 2 hours. 7-hour flight, 5-hour time difference. Maybe it's not an exact 7-hour flight. That might be the thing. But yeah, so again, we've got this one. Let's call that 12 o'clock, right, for the sake of 5 minutes. And then we're landing 3¼ hours later. So in this one, we're essentially chasing the daylight. So if we take off at, I don't know what time sunset is in the UK right now, probably around 8:30. But if we take off around 6:30, then we're landing at 9 o'clock. So 6:30 in the evening, let's call it, and landing at 9 o'clock in the evening in New York. So we just add 3 hours on, basically, to get the time. So if I want to land in New York when the sun's going down, let's say, or land in New York at 6:30, I need to be taking off around 3:30. So something like this would be ideal. 3:15, I wish you wouldn't do that. 3:15 and landing at 6 p.m. That would be a nice flight, time-wise. You're chasing the daytime in a way, but as you fly, the daytime does catch up to you, you know, because of the time zones and the length of the flight. So if you take off at midday where the sun's right above you, for example, you're landing and the sun has caught up and got a little bit in front of you by, you know, nearly 3 hours over the duration of your flight. So I figured, which one do I want to do? Do I want to be taking off in the morning and doing a nighttime sunset landing? Or do I want to take off here and just chase the daylight, so to speak? So I could actually take off in daylight. I could actually take off at, say, 11 a.m. From Heathrow, and we would be landing at around 2 p.m., just before 2 p.m. So it would be daytime for the entire flight, right? Kind of something like this one. That would be cool. So there's that decision. The final decision is which airline does which flight, right? We know that we want British Airways or American Airlines to do this flight, because that's how it is in reality, okay? So, do we want American Airlines leaving New York and going to its foreign country, the UK, or do we want a British Airways flight leaving New York and flying home to the UK? Similarly, the other way around, do we want an American Airlines flight to leave Heathrow to fly home to New York, or do we want a British Airways flight leaving home and flying to New York? These are decisions that are revolving. In reality, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, I could do any airline that never flies. I could do Delta, which don't make this flight. I could do Cathay Pacific or Emirates or whatever. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and stick to these real flights. I'm not necessarily going to stick to one of these times, but we could. But these are the takeoff times, so we have to allow ourselves at least an hour of prep. Get the flight plan ready, hope nothing goes wrong, hope we can just feed everything in and just get the plane to take off. But I will give myself a bit of buffer time. So, what have I decided? Well, the one decision I have made, although I don't know when I'm going to squeeze this in, is I want to do the flight both ways. I want to go JFK to Heathrow, and I want to go Heathrow to JFK. But do I want to do JFK to Heathrow in an American Airlines plane, and then Heathrow to JFK in a British Airways, in which case they're both flying away from home to the foreign country, so to speak, okay? Or do we do it where they're both... Do we want to see an American Airlines plane landing at Heathrow and a British Airways plane landing in JFK? Or do we want to see a British Airways plane landing at Heathrow? Now, for me, I want to see the plane, whatever the airline is, take off from its home destination and land at the foreign destination. So I want to do American Airlines taking off from America and flying all the way to the UK, and have an American Airlines flight landing into Heathrow. Because I would imagine if I was at Heathrow and looking through the window and watching the planes coming in, I'd be saying, oh, look at this one, it's American Airlines. It's obviously come from the United States somewhere. But if a British Airways flight was coming in, I'd just go, oh, this one's just come back from somewhere. You know, and I would prefer to see the foreign plane, for want of a better word, landing at an airport that's not its home. So I want to do it that way. So I think I want to do British Airways flying from Heathrow to JFK, but then I want to do American Airlines from JFK to Heathrow. Now the question is, which order do we want to do it in? Do I want to do JFK to Heathrow first, and then Heathrow to JFK at another later stage? Which way around do we want to do this? Well, it doesn't really matter, but I think I'd like to do JFK to Heathrow first. So the first flight, I think, would be American Airlines taking off from JFK in New York and landing at London Heathrow. So that's that decision done and out the way. The next question is, what time do we leave JFK? Well, we know we've got to allow ourselves 12 hours, right? Because whatever time we take off is the time we land, 12 hours later. Take off at midday, land at midnight. Take off at midnight, land at midday. That kind of thing. So I think, when do I want to land? Do I want to fly overnight? Not really, but it would be kind of okay to fly over the Atlantic overnight. So that's not too bad. But if I took off, say, 9 p.m. or even 8 p.m., so it's still light in New York, 8 p.m. takeoff, we would land at Heathrow at 8 a.m. So we would be landing as the sun was rising, and the flight would be essentially in the dark. So I don't think I want to do that. I want to, even though there's nothing to see over the Atlantic. See what I did there? See? Anyway, there's nothing to see as we're flying over the sea, over the ocean. Okay, there's nothing to see as we're flying over the ocean. So, yeah, I still think a morning flight out of New York would be better. But if we go back here and we do a search from JFK to Heathrow, let's take off show all. Are we seeing any morning flights? We're not, are we? They're either taking off at around 11 or they're taking off around 7 and 8, 10 to 7. Is this the earliest one? Yeah. That takes off at, so they're essentially flying overnight. Now, if I wanted to match reality, I could do that. These have arrived. Okay, these have arrived, and so we know how long they took. So this one, 12 hours and 10 minutes. The flight didn't take that long, by the way. Let's just reiterate that. It didn't take that long. It's just those are the times in those two countries when the plane took off and landed. The flight's around 7 hours, I think. 7 and a little bit of change. But, yeah, that's it. So it's interesting because I could then ask myself, well, okay, am I overcomplicating this, guys? But I could ask myself, okay, if we're going to do Heathrow to New York and we're chasing the daylight or chasing the nighttime, if we're chasing the daylight, so if we take off 2 hours before sunset, I mean, I know that the sun sets at different times in New York than it does in London. But if they were the same, if sunset was around the same time, we could take off 2 hours before sunset in London, knowing that we would be landing at around sunset in New York. But if I took off in the afternoon, it would be daytime the whole flight. So in that case, knowing that the flight from Heathrow to JFK would be pretty much daylight the entire time, do we then want to do a fully daylight flight the other way? Do we want daylight both ways? Or do we want one where we're taking off early evening in New York and landing early morning? It's a tough one. I think to do that, a good one would be going from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. because you get a little bit of daylight at the beginning, and when you're cruising over the Atlantic Ocean, it's going to be dark. And then by the time you're descending, it's already daylight again. So something like New York 8 p.m. But then again, if we're going in real time, what time is this in UK time. So the thing is, if we were to do this flight and take off 8 PM in New York, it would be 1 AM my time. So I would have to be on the simulator at midnight, getting the flight ready and taking off at 1 AM my time, which would be 8 PM, because I want to do it in real time. So I think I'm not going to be able to stick to these times here. I'm just going to have to do a time that suits me. I know these flights seem to all be in the evening, but I'm just going to have to do one that's away from the norm. I will use American Airlines. Don't guarantee I'm going to use one of their tail numbers, but or flight numbers or whatever. But I'm certainly going to do a time that fits in with me. So these times are not going to be. Maybe one day I'll do that if I'm up late. So yeah, so there we go. Now the next thing is the flight plan. Let's take a look. All right, so let's go to my flight plan. So we're just going to mock one up here right now. Obviously it's not going to be a proper one. So we'll go into new flight. And we want to go, let's say American Airlines, so let's call it AM. Or AMA, I guess, American Airlines, I don't know. Flight number for me would be 2627. So we're departing out of JFK. And we will be landing at Heathrow Airport. And our aircraft type will be a 777-300ER. Okay, so there's our flight. And for those wondering why it's a curvy line and not a straight one, it is a straight line. Pretty much, more or less. If you're a flat earther, the earth isn't flat. So if you wrapped this map around a globe, you'd probably find that this line is more or less pretty straight. Anyway, and you can see it dipping a few places, but that's probably because of some ETOPS planning going on. I don't know. If I took that off, I don't know how much it would change. But yeah, you see flights, you see flight paths sometimes, right, where the flight does this. It curves all the way up and down again. You know, like you see missiles, when you see missile paths and it's a big curve. It's not really doing that. It's not going up and coming down again, or going over towards Greenland and coming back again. It's because you're looking at it on a flat map, and if you wrapped that around a globe, it would be a straight line. It's as simple as that. So yeah, no flat earth. Right, so this is quick. Scheduled block time 6:30. That does not include the flight. Sorry. What am I talking about? That includes the flight. The block time includes the taxiing to the runway from the gate and the taxiing to the gate from the runway. Yeah, that's right. So let's generate the flight and we'll see exactly what the flight time is. This is shorter than I was expecting. Okay, so airtime 6 hours. So okay. So there's a 5-hour difference between the UK and New York. Flight is 6 hours. Wow. Where did I get 7 from? Other way around, perhaps? Let's edit the flight, guys, and see what happens. All right, so if we go from Heathrow to JFK, Ah, look at the block time now. It's longer, isn't it? By over an hour. Wow. Okay, let's see what the flight time is. Let's see. It was 6 hours to go from New York. This is regardless of time zones. 6 hours, New York to Heathrow. 7 hours 15 to do it the other way around. And we've got these different choices as well. Wow. Why? Why is it an hour longer? Comment, please make a comment in the comments if you know. That's interesting. Is it just that the route and the waypoints are different and they just add that extra time on? Okay, that's interesting. I mean, an hour give or take either there's not going here or there is not going to really make much of a difference. I didn't note down the altitude on the previous flight, but it's not going to fly too high, I don't think, over the Atlantic. 34 seems about right. And I guess passenger count, extra weight. I don't know how many passengers was on the flight going the other way. Interesting. Anyway, there you go, guys. That's just a quick rundown of my thoughts and stuff that I was just thinking about in terms of the flight itself. Oh, these are the ETOPS. Okay, so what this is basically saying is, I don't know how much the ETOPS is though, whether it's 2 hours. So when you reach these points, if you have any issues, these are the airports you would return back to. So that's Canada, CYQX. Is that Quebec? Yeah, so any issues here, you'd be returned back to here. There it is. ETP, that's your equidistant time point. So that's the middle of the flight. And then this one, any problems here, you'd be diverted to here. There's nothing here. So any issues here and into the ocean. Yeah, so that's ETOPS. It's just basically planning the flight so that it keeps your plane within a certain distance of an airport. I don't know what the ETOPS is on a 777. Probably 2 hours. It's probably 2 hours. It might be more. I actually don't know. I don't know if it says anywhere on here where it would be or what it is. I've never actually looked for it. ETOPS is kind of something new for me. I know it's mentioned here, but ETOPS alternate. Yeah, we've got 2 alternates there. What I don't know is what the ETOPS limit is on these planes. Or if there's a way to find out. It's an interesting thing because different planes have got different. Because back in the old days, you know, they needed to be within, I don't know, half an hour of an airport. But because planes are so much more reliable now, they don't need to be within an hour. They can be within a couple of hours. Because if an engine goes on a 777, okay, it's not ideal, but it can still fly on one engine. Much easier if you have 4 engines, though, and an engine goes. So it's easier to navigate the plane, keep the plane going. Alright, yeah, so that's all my thoughts. So which flight do we do first? JFK to Heathrow or Heathrow to JFK? I think the first flight is going to be New York to London in the American Airlines, and that is where we are right now. We are in this 777, so we will be literally here at this airport and doing the flight. Now this airport is super busy, so I'm hoping you're seeing this as smooth as I am, because I've got the lossless frame scaling running. Look at all these planes. Delta, 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 Delta. I think I've been dealt a bad hand here. Right, and you've got Virgin over there, KLM. Yep, KLM, they come here. Oh, plenty of busyness. Right, so this is the plane we will be flying out on, and we have one coming in right now. There we go. So yeah, this is the plane we will be flying, guys. The 777 American Airlines N726AN. I don't even know if that was on the list of all the real planes. Alright, so there we go. I'll let you know when this is happening, when this flight's happening. I'd like to do it sooner rather than later, because I'm really quite keen to do it. If I stream it though, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to stream it or if I'm going to just put it out on as a video. But it will be if I put it out on video, it'll be the full flight, the whole thing, but it won't last like 8 hours or 7.5 hours. It won't last that long because we'll be using accelerated time, and so a 6-hour flight will be compressed down into like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that across the Atlantic. And between top of cruise and top of descent, we just accelerate time, maybe even to 8 times, and then we can get the flight over and done with actually quite quickly. It might even just take like 40 minutes to get across the Atlantic on the video. So it'll, yeah, do the full video. And then once I'm happy with these kind of flights, I want to start doing other ones. I want to start going from maybe China to, I don't know, Thailand. I want to start doing flights from Thailand and Singapore and Malaysia, which is Singapore, and you know, just places, Egypt, whatever, I don't know, wherever 777s go to and from. Long flights. I want to make this a thing, doing longer flights, but with compressed time. That'll be cool. Anyway, there we go. I'll stop rambling on now, and I bid you guys farewell. Thank you for sticking with me on this one. I hope you look forward to the flight as I do, and I will see you then. That's it. Bye for now.